Oh, yeah. Life just got sweeter now that WLFE-DB has merchandise. Show your support by purchasing your t-shirts for WLFE, Paratalk Radio, Inside the Drag Closet, and more. But it doesn't stop there. T-shirts, coffee mugs, tanks, buttons, cloth bags, and more. Go to WLFE-DB.com. On the top bar, click on the merchandise tab and bam, there you go. You got merch. Support the shows. WLFE-DB.com.
Warning. The material discussed in this show may be sensitive or a trigger for some listeners. Strong language and topics are discussed. We talk with active duty service members and practice OPSEC at all times. You have been warned.
The Bipolar DM, Jason Cottam. His show talks about Dungeons and Dragons, indie writing, and living with a mental illness, in particular bipolar disorder, borderline disorder, and major depression, among other diagnoses. Check us out right here on Saturdays, 7 p.m. Eastern, also on WLFE-DB.com, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. So take a seat, sit back, and get ready for the Bipolar DM.
Welcome to the Bipolar DM Show. I am your host, Jason. This is on WLFE-DB Radio, and want to thank you for tuning in. This is a show about Dungeons and Dragons, indie writing, and living with a mental illness, in particular bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, and major depression, among other diagnoses. If you want to reach us by email, you can email us at thebipolardm@gmail.com. or go to our webpage, www.thebipolardm.com, and there you'll find more information, as well as links to our live show, my podcast, and resources for mental health, independent writing, and Dungeons & Dragons. Check us out on Facebook under WLFE-DB Radio Network or WLFE-DB Variety Unlimited. Either one of those on Facebook. If you do a search for that, you can find us there and see some of our other shows that we have going on. Also, you can find us on twitch.tv/TheBipolarDM. And not only are we on Twitch TV, but we're also on Strim TV as well, Strim TV. And it is the Variety Unlimited channel is where we're at. The Bipolar DM Show is a proud supporter of Safe Space. We are not doctors. We're not psychiatrists or psychologists. We're not here to solve your problems, but we are here to listen. And if you are in crisis right now, or you need somebody to talk to or reach out to us. If you go to WLFE-DB.com and click on the Safe Space button, and there you'll find resources and some ways to get connected with some people to help you out. We have our Patreon. Now that we are up and running, we got our Patreon going, and I want to thank our number one Patreon supporter, which is Siobhan. She is the first one, and so that makes her number one. And we thank you so much for your support. Without what you're doing, we are not able to put on this show. And so if you want to become a Patreon supporter as well, go to patreon.com/TheBipolarDM, and you'll find different levels of support along with goodies available at each level, from buttons and stickers to t-shirts. And we also have hoodies coming available now as well. Just go ahead and check that out at patreon.com/TheBipolarDM. And in today's show, we're going to be talking about National Novel Writing Month, or NaNoWriMo. So, National Novel Writing Month. What National Novel Writing Month is that back in 1999, a man by the name of Chris Beatty and 21 other writers decided to use the month of November to write a 50,000 word novel in 30 days. And so November became National Novel Writing Month. And it's since grown from just the 21 original authors to now hundreds of thousands of people, writers, every year participate in NaNoWriMo from now from where it started in the San Francisco Bay Area, now is observed around the world. And so National Novel Writing Month is a great time to, if you've ever wanted to write a book, to go ahead and sit down and put one out. Well, the one thing about NaNoWriMo is that you don't win anything. It's not a contest, although it is a competition to, much like a marathon, to make it across the 50,000 word mark. And so you don't win anything, although when you do complete your 50,000 words, you get to print out a certificate that says that you've completed National Novel Writing Month. But other than that, you get bragging rights. And so the question is it worth it? And having participated in several NaNoWriMos and completed one, I would say yes, it is very much worth the effort of getting into doing this. So NaNoWriting Month has already started. We're in the first week of it. Started on November 1st, but it goes for 30 days for the entire month of November. And for 50,000 words, you have divided it by 30 days. You get 1,667 words a day. Is what your target goal is. And some people, they write every single day and hit that mark. Some people only write on the weekends and have to do a larger word count in order to hit their target mark. And so there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can do this as far as keeping track of your word count and all that, and when you start writing. One of the things I did want to talk about, we don't talk a lot about writing on the show, even though this is, one of those things we want to talk about is independent writing. And we really hadn't had much of an opportunity to do so until this month. So I'm really happy to be able to discuss one of my passions, which is fiction writing, and doing the NaNoWriMo every year has been something that I've, even though I don't complete them all, I've only completed one. I'm very proud to do every year and enjoy very much. It's something I look forward to every year. And so if you're thinking about starting a novel or getting involved in the National Novel Writing Month, prep is really key to writing a novel, especially one where you're doing it on a time crunch. So whatever work you can do before in the weeks and months leading up to November, that's the best thing you can invest your time in is working towards prepping for NaNoWriMo. One thing I would suggest doing is downloading the Nano Prep 101 course off of NaNoWriMo.org. They have that there, and it's a 6-week course where it breaks down creating characters, creating a world, creating plot, and an outline and stuff like that. And it's a very good little booklet that's free for anybody who is interested in doing this. And so some of the things that you need to do when you are prepping for NaNoWriMo is first develop your main characters and your minor characters. You have your two characters in a story, your major characters and your minor characters. So your major characters are the ones who really move the story along, while the minor characters don't really, if they're not there, if they're not written, they're not really missed. They're guard number 3 or the shopkeeper, in some anonymous town. Develop your main characters. You want to invest a lot more into them than you would for your minor characters. So with your main characters, you not only want to have a kind of a checklist of different things about them, their physical stats, some of their dispositions and moods and stuff like that, as well as possibly a short backstory as well on the character. Is very helpful so that you can kind of get into the head of your character and understand them. The Nano prep book has a good little questionnaire in it for filling out for your main characters, and also if you want to, also your minor characters as well. And so you want to have your main characters, you want to have your minor characters. And on your minor characters, really, you don't have to have much more than a name and possibly a physical description and maybe something distinctive about them that kind of stands out. So, if they go to the florist shop and the florist has one eye and a jagged scar down her cheek, that'll kind of stand out, when weeks later they decide, oh, why do we go back over that florist with the one eye, main characters, minor characters. One other thing you want to work on too is your villain too. Now, the villain doesn't necessarily have to be a person. You can have villain be nature, a perfect storm or a hurricane that's approaching, or wildfire, something natural that man is facing against. And so you have that could be your villain. Of course, you do have your traditional villains, which is a person or individual. And, you want to have your villain, as well thought out and developed as your main character. You want to know the ins and outs of them. You want to know what they like, what they dislike, what is the most painful memory in their life, what's the most happiest. Also, you want to go into looking at what their motives are. Why do they do what they do? I mean, very rarely does one individual think of themselves as a villain in their own story. They always think of themselves as the hero. And so villains are no different than that. They think that they're just or righteous in what they're doing most of the time. Or if they're particularly of evil ilk, they just don't care. But with the villain, you want to know what they want, what their ultimate plan is, what their ultimate goal is, and how do they plan on going about doing it. And some other things you might want to consider too is develop them with traits and flaws. Nothing makes a character more believable than having a particular flaw in them, whether it's a flaw in character or behavior or mannerisms or whatever. It's something that makes the character a little bit more rounded. Not so goody two shoes. So we develop a really believable villain. And one of the next things that you want to do in your prep is outline the major points in your story. Most stories fall into the 3 acts format, which is, Act 1 is the beginning, Act 2 is the middle, and Act 3 is the end. And you can look at just about any movie and see the 3-act structure in how movies are done in the Western world and how stories are told. And so, you have a beginning and a middle and an end. And so when you're doing your outline, you want to take those things into consideration. You know, when you have your beginning, you want to depict the life of the main character before things change and go to hell in a handbasket. And so when you're depicting your main character in the beginning, you know, you want to show them as life as they normally lived it. Example would be in Star Wars with Luke Skywalker. You see in the published version, you know, you see a little bit of his life. He's a farm boy. He does chores. He has friends that he likes to hang out with. In the radio and novelized version of the story of Star Wars, there's actually quite a bit more involvement that Luke has with his friends, and actually hangs out with them and goes to Baker's Canyon and the Skyhopper and stuff like that. But yeah, you have a definite beginning right there of normalcy, what life is like in the sleepy, quiet backwater planet of Tatooine. And then from there, you have the inciting incident. And that's the spark, the thing that gets everything going. So in Luke's case, it would be probably the inciting incident would be the droids coming into his life, because from right then, you have the mysterious message from Princess Leia that Luke discovers. You have R2-D2 running away, and then Luke having to track him down, and then running into Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then missing being at his aunt and uncle's farm when the stormtroopers raise it with and all that. So yeah, it's when you outline that the next point there as to with the inciting incident, you that's when things start taking off. After the inciting incident, then you have your rising action, and that's when things start building up. And the simplest form of it is, if you think of it like a roller coaster ride, you know, you have your the beginning part where you get in the ride is your beginning. Then you have your inciting incident when the roller coaster takes off and starts moving, and then the rising action as you climb the hill to the peak and go over the other side, which is the climax. And so with your rising action, you want to have setbacks and minor victories and stuff like that with it as it builds up. So, you know, where it kind of goes up and down, kind of like the stock market, as it builds higher and higher until it gets to the climax, where it is the moment when all is won or lost, and hopefully the main character is victorious over the villain. And then you have after that the climax, and that is where, you know, now it's the new normal, where the person returns back to their old life and cannot live, you know, where they have to learn to live again, or they live a new life altogether, such as with Luke Skywalker joining the rebellion and living on the planet Hoth, and, you know, then later on escaping, you know, one imperial trap after another. So when you outline and plot your story, it's mostly a roadmap. And one of the most important things to understand about that is that it's not set in stone. You can change it and make adjustments as you need to going on with the plot or with the outline. But it helps keep you directed and focused when you're writing, because it's really easy to get off on a rabbit's trail or meander around in a particular scene and stuff like that when you don't really know where the story's going. And so an outline is extremely helpful, especially in your prep, getting ready before NaNoWriMo. And after you kind of get your story down, the basics of it. Then you want to build your world, and that's where you have your cities and towns and what's in the cities and the areas that the characters are going to be encountering or crossing, whether it's swamp or forest or it's urban or sewer or dungeon. You want to have those worlds developed and realistic, and with a thriving market and economy and stuff like that. You don't have to go overboard and know the trade routes of this kingdom versus that one, and the third one and this over here. But you do want to have a basic idea on how things work in your world, and so just enjoy building the world. I usually start with a map, and where I'll just draw a basic, just simple map with the city, and then I'll draw some mountains and water and forests and some other kind of features and some more cities and forts and stuff like that, and eventually build up a little bit of a world, and from there, that's kind of like my structure for which I build the rest of my world on. So then I have my cities, and I say, well, who's in charge of the city? What's the police force like? What's the economy like? Is this a place where you can get magical items very easily, or is it a rarity and cost a lot more in gold pieces to get something? So when you build your world, you do want to make it as realistic as possible. And another thing that you want to do, and a lot of times we'll overlook or don't think much of, and that is scheduling your time. For me, I have oodles of time on my hands because I'm a disabled vet, and all I have is this radio show and some Dungeons and Dragons games to do. So I have time to write whenever I feel like it. But if you don't, like if you want to, have a job and family and kids to take care of and stuff like that, you're going to have to plan when you're going to write and plan enough time so that you can hit your word count when you do write. And that's going to have to kind of depend a lot on you. If you're a morning person, you may want to consider getting up an hour earlier, and so that you can write, before the day starts. If you're more like a nighttime person or at the end of the day person, that's what you want to do to unwind. Then stay up an hour later for bed, or go to bed an hour early, to do that. But scheduling your time is very important, because you don't want to get it to where you are not able to get into typing and getting into the flow and getting your word count in and stuff like that. So, be careful about your time. And one thing that it's really difficult to do, but one thing that I see a lot of value in is getting support. And that is like the support, friends, family, social media, and behind you with your writing. NaNoWriMo.org has some great rooms and places to connect with other people, other writers from around the world, so that you can become friends and support each other in your writing endeavors. But having real world support is also very important too. But it can be really scary, because when you feel like you have to justify sometimes writing, when somebody asks, oh, you're writing a book, well, what's it about? Which is the natural question, but it's almost as if, well, let me decide whether or not it's worthy to be written at all. Don't let people get you down or deter you or any of those other things when it comes to getting support for your novel, and really the support can be as little as just somebody being aware of it and you keeping them up to date on your word count and where you're going with the story and stuff like that, to even having beta readers, people that read your rough draft and give you feedback and input so that you can make adjustments during your editing process. So get that support. And I've really never really had that support with, the novels I've written, but I'm going to see about trying to reach out, especially in the social media, and try and get some support with keeping up on this novel that I'm trying to write. Now the thing about it is now that it is November, it is now time to write, and so it's not too late to jump on it. You're only about 10,000 words behind right now, but you can catch up on a really good weekend. And start writing your 1,667 words per day to reach your goal of 50,000 words in 30 days. So, let's talk about some pitfalls that writers run into, and that is one of the main ones is writer's block, the inability to write anything. And writer's block is more, it's really misunderstood a lot. Writer's block is not that you don't know what to write. A lot of times writer's block is you have so much to write you don't know where to begin. And that's where an outline comes in handy with helping prevent writer's block. But also another thing that helps break writer's block is writing. Writing badly, giving yourself permission to write really, really bad stuff and be okay with it. So, but that's the writer's block. I've had it and it sucks. But writing does get you through it, and forcing yourself to write, even if it's just trash that you're going to throw away, sometimes you find some good stuff in there. And so, so avoid writer's block. Other things that can be very dangerous or be a pitfall is like the internet, social media, television, really anything that's not putting your butt in a chair and writing is a possible distraction. And so you need to be very mindful of what you're doing. It's one thing to get on the internet to do some research, but then if you get onto a tangent or next thing you know, you're on eBay, you're missing out on your writing time, and you're doing yourself a disservice. So, but one thing that you want to do also, now that it's time to write, is to get past yourself as well. We hold ourselves back a lot, especially when it comes to something creative and taking a risk. And but get past yourself, your hang-ups, your doubts, the naysayers, all that stuff right there, toss it away, because you are the one person that's going to get this book written. And there's nobody else that's going to make you do it. This is not high school. This is not college. It's not an assignment. This is something you're doing for fun, hopefully for fun. But get past your hang-ups and your doubts and just sit down and write. And that is one of the most important things that you can do. And hit your goals. That's something that's really important too. So, we're going to go ahead and go to a commercial break, and then when we come back, we will discuss more on NaNoWriMo and some of the benefits of writing and stuff like that too. So thank you very much for tuning in. Welcome back to the Bipolar DM Show. I am your host, Jason, and we are talking about National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo, in this episode. And we discussed in the previous segment about what NaNoWriMo was, kind of what some of the things to do to get prepared for it, and some of the things to do when you write for it. And so we talked about that, and now we're going to talk a little bit about, the benefits of writing and why we write. Everybody writes for their own reasons, when they write a story, especially when they're telling something very personal or something that is very risky, whether it's going into certain types of fiction or nonfiction. There's a lot of risk in writing. And so we have to have a good reason to write, to stick with it, because it's like a marathon. You're going to have those days where it's not a sprint. When you're looking at 50,000 words, plus, it's a lot of words to be typing out, cranking out. And so we, as writers, have to take it, bite-sized pieces and drive on, and keep moving forward. But some of the benefits of writing, is that creativity makes us happy. When we are creative, we feel good, and so it's a great thing to write because it's creative and it helps us feel good. That's, most of the time. I mean, there are times when I want to throw my laptop through the window in frustration over my story or lack of. But, it's that the creativity does make us very happy, and it's and it helps, build us up, Another thing is that writing can be very therapeutic too. There's been some studies in psychology about the benefits of writing, even fiction writing, to help overcome grief. And I had actually read an interesting article in Psychology Today, which was by a woman who did that. After her husband's suicide, she wrote a fiction book, and it helped her, even though the book itself didn't deal directly with her life, the writing of the book and everything like that helped her deal with and recover from this tragic loss in her life. And so writing can be very therapeutic, especially in helping us to look at things from the bigger picture, taking a step back and looking at the world as a whole and where we fit into it. Writing helps you put things in perspective, and it helps also increase your confidence. When you complete something like NaNoWriMo, it's a major accomplishment to be able to have written a 50,000 word novel. And so there is an increase in confidence as well when you participate in writing a book. And you're doing something, and it's because you're doing something extraordinary. Everyday people don't write books. They just don't. And if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. It's not easy. It's a tough business to be in. The hardest part is not writing the book itself. It's the stuff that happens afterwards that sucks, whether it's editing line by line or whatnot, or it's marketing, or trying to get your books into bookstores, the business of it. There's so much stuff that goes on behind the scenes in the book industry that it's really tough to get into. Now I've got into independent writing, which with the indie market, that's where I'm not going through a traditional publishing house. So I actually go through lulu.com is who my publisher is, and I do a print on demand. So instead of printing a warehouse with 10,000 books, they print one at a time. Now, it does cut into my royalties a little bit by having an individual book cost a little bit more when it's print on demand. But, you know, if an order goes in for my book, they print one book and they fill the order. And I've been very impressed with their work as far as with the quality of the published work of the 2 books that I had done. But independent writing has really opened up the market a lot to new writers and people that would normally not get published because of a traditional publishing house. And so writing is just something, writing a book is something that's extraordinary. It's something that makes people pause and think about what it is you're doing. You know, so having this image in your head of why you want to write is very important because it's going to help you keep you on track. And keeping on track is part of it is sticking to your goals. And when you set your goals, they need to be reasonable and obtainable. You can't, you know, say I'm going to do 50,000 word novel in 10 days. Yeah, it's possibly physically possible to do it, but it's not going to be that great of a novel. I can almost guarantee that. But stick to your goals. Stick to your word counts. That's, you know, those mild markers help build you up, you know. So if you hit, you know, your word count 4 days in a row, 5 days in a row, 6 days in a row, that's an accomplishment that you can look at and help build you up. You know, stick to your goals. Keep your goals reasonable and obtainable. Don't make them so out there that you are destined, doomed to fail. We don't want to set ourselves up for failure. We want to set ourselves up for success. Not an easy win, but a success. And so doing things like prepping your work before the novel started, before you write your novel, doing the outlines and plots and everything like that, those things there is going to help keep you on track. And when you feel like when you don't want to write anyways. I can tell you what, from my own illness, I don't feel like doing a lot of things, especially when the depression sets in. And when I don't want to do something, I usually don't do it. And a lot of times that has a detrimental effect, especially when it's something that I really do need to do, like my dishes. But you know, when you don't feel like writing, you still need to sit down at the chair, at the desk, or the table, or wherever you're sitting at, and on whatever you're using as your medium for writing, whether it's pen and paper, a laptop, an old typewriter, you know, whatever. You know, you want to sit down and you want to write and give yourself permission to write badly. That was probably one of the most freeing things that helped me in my struggle with writer's block, was giving myself permission to write badly, to write really crappy stories. And by doing so, it was okay that they didn't turn out all that great because, well, it's a first draft, and first drafts usually suck. You know, plots and outlines, like I said before, can be changed. So if you're going halfway through and you realize you got a better idea on how to end the story, go with it. You know, you can erase and cross out and move things around. So just because it's written down in the outline doesn't mean that you're stuck to it and that you can't do anything else about it. be flexible when it comes to your plots and outlines too. You'll get ideas as you're writing and want to include those in there. And so if you're so rigid on your outline and your plot, you can miss out on a lot of good stuff by not including it in. And I mentioned before about networking and getting support. To help keep you on track is having that cheer squad that's behind you, rah-rahing you along. And it's a very important thing to have. That's where you can find those, within your friends, your family, social media. I know social media can be very fake, it can be very brutal, but at the same time, there's some good people out there, and they can be very supportive as well. A bit of prep work prevents a lot of problems. And I didn't prep very much for this NaNoWriMo. I almost never do. I prepped a little bit with writing out some of my main characters and one of my villains, and got some plot points and some outline done. I'm still working on that. I'm kind of working on building the ship, building the airplane as we're in the air, so to speak, with doing the outline and finishing that up. And I don't think an outline ever really is finished until the book's done. Because there's always going to be changes to your outline as you work on it, and you make adjustments, and you include things and exclude things, and and all that. But whatever prep work you do was going to prevent a lot of problems down the road, especially when it comes to plots and story. If you know ahead of time what the ending's going to be like and what it looks like, it makes it so much easier to direct the rest of the story towards that ending. And you're the storyteller. You're not supposed to be surprised by the ending. You're supposed to know it and have it written. And so be sure to know how your story ends, and then reverse engineer how you get your characters there. Stick to your word counts and goals. Helps you keep on track and also finishing strong. Because if you keep hitting your marks, you are going to keep going on, and you're going to finish this book in time. And so, for finishing strong, just stick to your word counts and your goals. Whether your goal is to write every single day or write 5 days a week, and get, and adjust your word count, daily word count accordingly. However you want to do it. And, just plan, and stick to your word counts and plan your ending, and remember why you're working on the novel. Getting back to what we discussed at the beginning part of this segment, which is why we write. I know I wrote the two books I wrote. The first one was a 12-step rosary for the addict, and it was a rosary prayer based on the 12 steps and the 12-step prayers. And I made it so that you can use a rosary while you pray and keep track of your prayer count, and all that, because the rosary is just a tool to help you pray, and nothing magical or mythical about it, but it's a very useful tool. It's that was my first book. My second book I wrote was Living by the Scout Code. I can't remember the exact title now. I could probably look over down on the shelf and see and look at this, but it's Living by the Scout Code. And that book there was written pretty quickly. I was manic at the time, and I wrote that book in 30 days, start to finish, from when I first got the idea to when I actually published it on Lulu.com. I threw this book together, and I was quite manic or hypomanic when I had done it. And so that explains why I was able to do it so quickly. But it was a nice little novel. But basically what it does is it breaks down the Scout Oath, the Scout Law, the motto, the slogan, and everything like that. And it shows you how to apply it to your everyday life. And so I wrote that book for my kids. Just because, they 3/4 of them were in Scouts. All of them had done some kind of scouting, whether it's Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts. But we were very, very involved with scouting until just recently. And remember why you wrote your novel, and why it is that you're telling your story. I could say from my own experience that, I know when I wrote my books, I wanted to have something that my kids could remember me by, especially with the On My Honor, Living by the Scout Code, that particular book, which I wrote for them. My other book, which is the 12-Step Rosary, Narcotics Anonymous Rosary, that one there was written for the addict that was struggling. And that's why I wrote that particular book there. Remember why you write. Remember it's therapeutic. Keep on track when you're writing too. So remember, use your outline and your plot points, stuff like that. What are your notes? Take detailed notes about everything. I have a world book. I don't have it with me right here, but it's divided up with the main characters and minor characters and the world as a whole, and maps and story and lore and stuff like that. And this notebook is kind of the Bible for my little world. And so it's very important for you to have some kind of system to keep track of your notes, whether you do it all electronically and keeping it all on an iPad or laptop, or if you're doing it old school in pen and paper, in a book. Just keep track of what, your notes and stuff like that, and have good notes. They'll help out a lot, especially when you're 60, 70,000 words in and you got to dig back to the beginning of your story, which you wrote, 20 days ago, and trying to remember, what it is that you are, your character had said to such and such person, or a magical object that they had recovered, and now what does it do? Trying to have that continuity. So it's very important to have your notes in order too. That is all I'm going to have for today's show. I want to thank you all for tuning in to the Bipolar DM Show. Watch us live on Saturdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on WLFE-DB.com, or you can go to our Facebook page. WLFE-DB Radio Network is the Facebook page, and you can watch us live there. You can watch us live at Bipolar DM is the handle for that page, for the Bipolar DM. Also, you can watch us on Strum TV on the Variety Unlimited channel, as well as on twitch.tv/The Bipolar DM. Listen to the show anytime, anywhere, wherever you find your favorite podcast, whether it's Spotify, Apple, Spreaker, or whatever else. We're on there. And so we try and get those posted as soon as possible. But listen to us on our podcast as well. Contacting us, you can get a hold of me by email at thebipolardm@gmail.com or go to my webpage, thebipolardm.com. And there you'll find, like I said, previous episodes of my podcast, my links to my live shows that I have, and resources as well. And next week's show, don't have a topic or guest just yet. We're going to work that out. But we'll always get something going on. So you can go ahead and tune in next week. Thank you again for watching us on the Bipolar DM Show. And remember, everybody, take your meds. Oh, yes. Robert did mention, don't forget, time change tomorrow. So...
Thank you for listening to the Bipolar DM. They love sharing thoughts and ideas. See you next week, 7 p.m. Saturdays on WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows, and that makes for great talk radio. WLFE Digital Broadcast Network is on TV. You can watch all of our shows on WLFE-DB.com. Check out our channels: Paranormal View for all of your paranormal type shows, LGBTQ Friends for all of our LGBTQ shows, Variety Unlimited for all other shows. It runs 24/7 right on WLFE-DB.com. You'll even catch the lives, all in one place. Never miss an episode, past or future. WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows.